Hey everyone, I'm going to do a read aloud from my book Miss E. I'll tell you a little bit about the book. It is historical fiction. It takes place in 1967. The main character is a high school girl named Bets, going to school in California. And the section I'm going to read is about halfway through the book. I'll tell you a little bit about the story leading up to this. Bets has met the character of Miss E, who people in town don't really know very much about. She's an older woman that pretty much keeps to herself. She lives in a farm outside of town. And in this chapter, Miss E has convinced Bets to take a ride in an airplane with her. And it's this really kind of old, broken down biplane. It's an open cockpit airplane, the kind of airplane that has two seats, one in front of the other. And you'll see in the section that I'm going to read that, like most airplanes, there are two sets of controls. So Bets is sitting up front, Missy is flying, but while that's happening, Bets is sort of seeing the controls move because both sets of controls are connected so that either person can fly the plane. So here we go. Ready, Bets? Missy's voice shouted behind me, almost lost in the roar of the engine. I didn't think I could manage a voice loud enough to be heard, and instead meekly raised my hand in a thumbs-up gesture. The engine couldn't possibly get any louder, and then it did. I noticed a knob on the panel in front of me move, as if it were being pulled out by an invisible hand, and I realized it was mirroring Miss E's, as she pulled out her throttle and turned the low, grumbling roar into a high-pitched whine. At first, the duster stood still, reminding me of the Electra trapped back in the barn. And then we slowly began to roll forward again, faster and faster, until the blur of fields outside the cockpit matched the whine of the engine. The plane tilted forward as the small tail wheel lifted off the ground, and the view suddenly opened up in front of me. The small building and the other planes were ahead of us, but we approached them so quickly, almost as soon as I'd noticed them, we were passing by them and leaving them behind. The big front wheels were bumping along the grass runway, and then they weren't. Just like that, we were in the air, and just as quickly the engine quieted and the vibration stopped, as if the duster had been working with all its might to move along the ground at such a speed, and now that it was in the air and back in its element, it could relax. My eyes couldn't look in enough directions fast enough. In a breath, the field ahead of us disappeared and was replaced by a forest, and then another field behind that, and a small stream to the side, and then a river that the stream must flow into, and then, I think, through the haze of miles of empty air, mountains showed their silhouettes against the sky. But each second I looked, there was more to see. I twisted my neck to both sides and struggled to see something that we'd just flown over as it slipped away behind, only to snap my gaze back to the front so I didn't miss what was coming. I thought Missy was shouting behind me, and I struggled to hear, and then realized that she was laughing and cheering. I twisted in my seat and could see her face behind the small windshield that was between us. She was smiling and had one hand raised in the air, as if she were catching the air as it flowed past. I'd seen kids at school who were old enough to drive do the same in convertibles. They thought they were having the time of their lives. They had no idea what they were missing. I couldn't resist raising my own arms above my head and letting out a cheer of my own. I wiggled in my seat as I flapped my imaginary wings in the air, and was surprised when my foot pushed into something on the floor. The plane reacted immediately. We turned to the left, but it was like the front of the half of the plane was still trying to pull us straight ahead, while the tail was steering us someplace else. In one motion, my foot jumped off the pedal like it was on fire, and I turned in my seat to look at Miss E and make sure everything was okay. When I did, my knee caught the control stick, pushing it forward and to the side. Again, the plane's reaction was immediate. The nose of the plane dropped down, and the whine of the engine increased like we were picking up speed. At the same time, we rolled to the left, and I was suddenly looking out the side of the plane at the ground below us. I scrambled for something on the opposite side to hold on to, forgetting the seatbelt that was buckled firmly across my waist. Then, as quickly as we had turned and tilted, we were straight and level again. Woo-hoo! That was exciting, huh? You having fun, Bets? Miss E called from behind with a laugh in her voice. Too nervous to take my hands off the edge of the cockpit, I only nodded. The view outside had changed. We'd come closer to the ground in the short second that the plane was tipping, and I wondered how many more seconds we would have been in the air if Miss E hadn't straightened things out. All's well, Bets. We needed to start making some turns anyway. Nothing wrong with flying in a straight line when you have someplace to go. But if that's all we're going to do, we might as well be driving on a road. All right, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this read aloud from Miss E. Thanks for listening.